All right, so now it's getting kind of interesting. We're getting close to finishing up. So now we're ready to put our chargers in. And this is what we got here. So this is Thunderstruck chargers. We're going to be using 2 of them in parallel. So each one's a 2.5 kilowatt charger, 96 volts. And what's nice about these, one of the many things that are nice about these chargers is that they're completely customizable. So you can actually change settings. You can customize them. So, like for example, if your battery pack changes in size later on, if a new battery technology comes along, and I want to put those new batteries in, and maybe they have a higher capacity, we can easily go into the program here and actually customize this. So, and change stuff, and we don't have to send them back or anything. This is the only charger that I've seen on the market that allows you to do that, where you can actually change stuff, change settings. Also, you can change the max charge, for example. Like if you want to set your, like I've already had these, they were kind enough to already program them for me because I already gave them the information, so they already programmed. So these are actually drop-in ready to go. I don't even have to program anything. They're actually good to go. But if I want to change them, they allow you to do that. So one of the settings that I had them do is I had them do, 90% full charge, because I figured that, that's what I do with all my cars anyway. So I got some stuff here. So these are, they're already set for 90%. So like, which I could change. I could change that if I want, which is really cool. I mean, no other charger allows you to do that. You can just get in there and, I mean, outside of some of the newer OEM cars, like the Teslas and some of the other cars that have the ability to change your max setting, your max charge setting, this one allows you to do that same thing. So I thought that was really super cool. So, so they're set up for 90%. Which is the way I can't see any reason in the world why I would ever need to go higher than that. I mean, for what I'm doing. And so this is what we got here. This is the actual controller. This is their custom controller for these chargers. And this is what allows you to, you just use a serial port cable right here that comes with the kit. You can basically plug right into your PC, and you can access this controller and find out what all the settings are and adjust everything. And this is basically what you get. You get your wires. Now, this being a CAN system, oh yeah, this is also compatible J1772, so you'll be able to plug this into any public charging anywhere. So there's no problem with that either. And so they have like this little resistor right here. This is for like the CAN bus system, since it's a freaking CAN bus system, but they got it simplified. Which I hate CAN bus stuff, but in this case they've got it simplified, so they've done all the work, they've got it all figured out. So basically we have to insert that little resistor on at the end of one of these chargers to get the CAN system to operate properly. Without that, the whole thing won't work. So it's just like that kind of goofy stuff, you have to know, but they figured it out, which is really cool, because otherwise the CAN bus stuff can just drive you crazy. It's driven me crazy on many things. On other cars, I guess, the Fiat 500e, for example. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get these chargers in. We're going to be installing them right here, up top here. I'm going to build a board for them and have them basically hard mounted on that board, and then I'll have them joined together, like 2 wires in and then 1 wire coming out, and then one wire coming out for each of the connections will be coming into our to places that we're using here. So we'll be tapping into our 96 volt circuit here for the negative, and then for the positive over here by the contactor. And then there's the wires coming from the charge port right here. So we have our 3 wires coming in for the power, and then we have our the pilot and the proximity wire, the little wires. Pilot and the proximity is what they're called. That's for the J1772 connection. So that's completely able to read all that. So we'll be able to tap those. So those little wires go into the computer, basically, into that controller. And then the fat wires come in right here. And so we're going to join those up and splice into our chargers down here. So for example, the CAN bus connections will be made just using 2 wires on the controller here. Just these 2, the green and the blue. That's the only thing that's going to be going in to control these chargers. All these other wires are just for other, this is being a universal charger. I guess they have different ways of, you know, controlling it. So like, so all that stuff in our application, we don't need any of that. We can just cut all that off basically, get rid of that. And then the other wires are just pretty self-explanatory. So this is our input wires right here. So this is our 240 coming in. And then we have our power coming out. This will be the excessively fat wires for some reason. I don't know why these are so fat. They should be the same size as the ones coming in because they don't produce anything more than what's coming in. In fact, these wire size is good enough for 3 times what this thing's capable of putting out. So it's kind of ridiculous why these wires are so much fatter coming out of it, because it doesn't produce any more power coming out than it does have coming in. So, but anyway, we're going to be doing the same thing here. So we're going to be doing 2 wires in and 1 wire coming out. Join these together on our board and then basically connect to the car. And so that's basically all there is to it. So let's go ahead and make this happen. So here's our rig so far. We've got it bolted down to a piece of plywood. So this is becoming one piece now. 1/2-inch plywood, not very heavy. And then I've got it strap tied up here. And we're going to be putting about a 1-inch spacer right here to give us enough height for it to fit in the car. I'll show that to you later, but for now let's continue with the wiring here. So what I've done is I've took off all this material here for this is focusing on the output circuit, the 96 volt circuit. So this is going to be tapping into our contactor right here. So I've already installed new contactor here, and then I also welded it or soldered it as well. And I've done the same thing here. I've soldered this as well, spliced in, soldered it, so it's in there real good. Same thing with the negatives here. And now I'll just put some shrink wrap on here and heat that up and seal that up, and then we'll wrap this with some electrical tape, seal that up. And then next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the input circuit. So that's going to be these wires right here. I've already cut this one off. We're going to splice this one in, do the same thing basically, solder in, splice in to this one, so that way we have only one output or input, and then that will be our wires from our contactor that's mounted on the connector that's mounted on the car for charging. I think I got this thing all set up and ready to go now. I've been working on it a little bit. This takes a pretty significant amount of time. I would give at least 2 days, 2 whole days just to this project here, just to get this all done, because there's a lot of thinking and sorting out a lot of little different wire connections, all different sizes, big sizes, small sizes. So yeah, it's a piece of work though. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and continue on here. So we got this pretty much sorted out. I think I'm wrapping all the soldered connections with some electrical tape first, and then I hit it again with some duct tape afterwards. We're also going to use wiring loom to finish this up, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like so far. With the wiring loom on, it would look pretty tidy, I think. We got our CAN bus. I've been clipping off some of this stuff here. This universal charger comes with all kinds of connectors, and we only need 2 wires actually, the blue and the red. Those are the CAN bus wires. Everything else could be clipped off, so I just kind of tidied that up a little bit. So we've got our plus coming in, or plus I guess output, plus output into the battery pack right here, and then that's the negative, of course. And then so I need to tap into a place for a 96 volt DC to DC converter that converts to our 12 charges up our 12 volt battery. So that's what these leads are going to, because I only have a few limited places, so I wanted to just kind of converge these two together. And then of course I used heat shrink to tidy that up. So that's what these little wires are sticking out of it. A lot of extra connectors you don't need. Get rid of those. And then over here we got everything pretty much ready to go. So I've been working on the DC to DC converter as well, tidying up the wires on that. And I got these nice new connections that I've made now that are going to go right into our 12 volt directly. Since it's right next to it, there's no reason to have an extension, so we'll be able to just tap it in right. Oops, sorry. Tap it in right here, and that will be the output from the DC to DC converter. And then we have our input wires now, and these are the wires I just showed you down there. Those are the wires, 14 gauge small wires are going to be going as the input into this device. We're going to be just connecting right into there. So these are all removable, of course. And then the enable switch will be tacking into, had to reuse some wire here and fabricate another little link here. So this is going to be going into our, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to the contactor after it's on, so that way we can have ignition. So it needs a 96 volt signal, but I want to make sure that it's not on all the time. So the only place to really connect into it would be after the contactor. So like when the controller starts up, then it activates the contactor, and then that creates the current that goes through. So that's when that will be enabled. So we're going to tap into that side. So the negative, I guess the output side of the contactor. That's what we'll be making that connection to for the enable switch. And back to the chargers. So we got this all wired up. I had to fabricate these things. These are tiny little delicate little wires here. You have to almost use a magnifying glass. You have to or hold it 3 inches from your eyes to get this to work. But anyway, we got our little CAN bus loop here, or end of the circuit resistor in there. And so that's per the instructions. That's how you have to do it. Otherwise the whole thing won't work. And so we got all this, we got some of these wires lined up here. We've tapped into our port, charging port. We've added the wires now and adapted these over. So these are the 2 port, the proximity and the pilot, which will be plugging into here momentarily. And then the other cables have already been put into this supplied connector here. So now this is ready to just basically click right into our, right here. I'll be clicking in to charge, to input this from the charging port. Here it is, ready for installation. I've been trying to reuse some of this orange wiring loom whenever possible. And I think we have enough salvaged from the car here to finish the job. And what I wasn't able to cover, this is the last little piece right here of high voltage cable. I've been using some nice orange electrical tape that I bought specifically for these type of situations, just to tidy it up. This is our duct tape connections right here underneath that. So it's got electrical tape, duct tape, and then electrical tape on top of it. So see, kind of from a distance it looks kind of nice and tidy. I think it looks pretty nice. Here it is installed. We're going to go ahead and test it out real quick right now. This is just temporarily in place, but that's about where it's going to go. We're going to have to, when we're ready to final install, we'll have to bolt it down a bit tighter. But for now, that's loosely in place where it's going to be. I tested the hood, everything's good. It closes, so it's basically where it's going to go. And then all the wires have been connected, so we have we're tapping into our 96 volt system right here at the main contactor, using it as a bus bar sort of. So all those, the back pack and front pack, and then this is tying into there. And then for the negative, it's over here at the controller. Back pack, front pack, and then right there, it's tapping in right there. So it's independent of the controller, so it doesn't matter if that's working or not. It's a separate system. So that's where we're tapping in. We've got our wires connected, our CAN bus wires are connected. And we have all of our stuff heading back to our controller right here. I'll probably tidy this up with some wiring loom to finish it up later. But we're ready for testing right now. The only thing I need is an LED display. We're going to have to install that on the dash, I guess, probably. Or, yeah, probably. Makes sense. So I have it wired. The wire's going into the car, but I don't have an LED bulb at this time. I could probably rig something up, but I'm going to look into that further on. But for now, I think we're good to go. So let's, oh yeah, I've also made some modifications over here. I started to wire up the DC to DC converter, so we're going to be testing that shortly afterwards. Making some other, had to change the orientation is because we had this sticking out now, so it tightens it up a little bit. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and try this thing out. I've hooked up the 96 volts to our DC to DC converter here. And the battery is at about 12.1 volts, and so it's actually getting pretty low. So what I could do is I'll show you right here. Let me hook this up right here. I'll show you how this works. May as well. So I've got the chance here. So now it's showing 12.9 or 12.8 because I just had it briefly connected here. And so temporarily I'm running the enable. This is has kind of a weird system, so it needs to go to activate it. It's not 12 volts; it's actually 96 volts. It needs pack voltage. So It's just a way of turning it on. So watch what happens when the we go down here and hit the positive. So there we go. So now we're up to 13.8. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. 13.8, 13.7. So it should be putting a max of like 9 or 50 amps at the max. If we disable this right here, then see it drops right back down. So that's working. So that's good. It's nice and quiet. It doesn't make any clicking noises, no contact noises or anything. It's very quiet. You wouldn't know it's even doing anything. I don't think this thing even got the slightest bit warm. Although it wasn't, though in all fairness, I wasn't running it for anything more than about 30 seconds. So continuing on, at some point you're going to have to wire in some other bits and pieces here. So for example, this is our heater circuit for our heated seats right here. So I'm using this fuse in the bottom here, this add-on tack-on fuse in the bottom. So we're going to be using that port. It's being repurposed as a seat heater fuse. And so I've wired that in. And so that's running back here. So we've got our mains right here coming out. This was, once again, we're recycling the original wiring from the car and just repurposing it. So this one actually had a splice already built into it. So it was actually pretty cool. So it's already good to go. So we'll have each of these kind of go out. That's our lead coming in. And we'll have, we'll do all the wiring for the heated seats right there. And then another thing we tapped into, the reverse light is something that you'll have to tackle when you do a conversion. So the reverse light was it was a sensor connected to the transmission. So I lost track of where those wires, you know, joined. It doesn't really matter because right here we know where the power supply is at. It's the third fuse right here, according to this right here. So we know we can tap into it right here. So what I've already done is I've tapped into, this is my splice right there. So I've just spliced into that wire there. So we know that that's the power supply coming in. And then it was just a matter of going to the back of the car and tracing the wire coming back. And so what ended up happening is I found that it came right over here. This is actually all of the wiring for the taillights. And then what I did is I spliced it down here using the same thing. I used the same splice. And then so I just ran new wire, repurposed wire over here. So what I got is I got our reverse forward reverse circuit right here. So this is a switch that supports two different circuits. So you can so when we have the motor circuit will be on this side, controlling the motor, forward, reverse for the motor. And then this is a separate circuit right here. And so that's just, so it has power supply coming in and then power going out. So when we go into back, it turns on the reverse light. So that's simple as that. So I like the simplicity of that. And that fixes that. So basically power comes in, goes straight into the switch, goes back in, taps into the system down here, and then out to the back of the car. So wherever that other wiring is, we don't really know and we don't really care because it's somewhere underneath the dash. It goes out somewhere and it's like, you know, there's no reason to try to trace that down. It'll take you days to probably do that, so we don't want to waste any time here. So anyway, so now what we're going to do, we're getting kind of close now, so things are looking pretty good. We know for sure we got this area secure now, so there's nothing else I need to do. Everything's working. Because, you know, power windows are working. We've got our lighting switches here for all of the different components and everything. So like, I don't know if I went over this or not, but I'll go over it again if I haven't before. So what I did is I relocated the light right here. It used to be here in this ugly location, useless location. And so what I've done is I relocated it up here in a more useful location. So it's connected right now. So all I have to do is turn it on. So just turn it on like that. And then, so that's turning it on right there. So that's a much more useful location for the light. So that's been done, and that was just a matter of tucking wires, basically just once again recycling wires, running them all the way down and tapping into to the wires over here basically. So I soldered some wires in and just got what I needed to once again it was very fine gauge wiring. So actually let's just go show you that. So here's what's happening right here. So I spliced into the connection right there, just recycling some wires from the fuel injection lines again. And that's what's happening right there. And it's the pink wire right here. This is the other splice down here, so this is what's happening right here. It's the red wire is the brake, or the reverse wire. So just tapped into there, right there, and then that's what's running back to our reverse light. So we're all basically tidied up here in the back now. We're finally at a point where we can finish this whole area up. Oh, also, I made the final connection here since we have our everything's installed in the front now. I've gone ahead and connected this back up. So that's our connection from our back pack to our front pack. So we have connection on each side, right there and right here. So that's been tightened up. And so that's our big wires, our fat wires right here that go underneath the length of the car. They go to the front, connect to the front pack. And so yeah, we're basically, everything's looking good now. So what we're going to go ahead and do is tidy up this whole area now, since there's nothing that needs to be done. This is all done now. So it's ready to put back together. I guess we'll put some of this plastic trim in. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do with this, because some of this stuff goes in, some of it doesn't. So yeah, that's going to be our next little task here. So let's get going on that. And now we're about ready to cut our carpeting out. This is what we're going to be using here. So nothing like some nice lightweight black carpeting. It's very universal. It works on all kinds of different scenarios. And so this is what I'm using. It's actually just the right width too. 40 inches is going to work perfect. So we won't even have to cut off the edges. We'll only have to cut off just one cut. So we're going to cut out 24 inches here. And we'll still have plenty left over for other projects. What I've done is I've gone ahead and just cut off those side panels. I've just cut them back to right about here or so. Do that on both sides, and what that does is it gives us a nice clean edge right there. So that part right there, looking this direction, it's nice and clean. Okay, so here's what I rigged up here. I found some piece of wood, and then I custom cut it. Got it in there nice and snug, so it's in there flat. It can't go forward or backwards because it's braced on all sides. Can't go sideways, can't go back because of the little lip right here, and then it can't go forward on this side. So it's actually a pretty nice little piece. Doesn't weigh hardly anything, and fits in there nice and snug. And here's what it looks like installed. I think it looks pretty clean. Looks pretty nice. We just did a little slit right here, and then we also cut out a little notch right here for the safety belt bolt to clear. And I think that's how it kind of looks right there. So that little notch right there. Now I have the option of using the existing fastener right there, or the existing for this plastic piece right, as you can see right here. There's a plastic piece. I think I have enough carpeting that I could go in over there. I think I could actually tuck that in there and probably just bolt that right in there. So I think that's going to work really nicely when we're done, when we're finished. I think we'll be able to just simply punch a hole right through there and actually have that carpeting and the plastic piece fastened in there. So I think that will pull it nice and tight and keep it in place. Now we're ready to go ahead and install our throttles. These have just recently arrived, so now we're ready to get back on it here. So I'm excited about this. So I tried to get the OEM pedal to work that came off the salvage car, and I failed miserably at it. It just does not work at all. So I spent a good 4 hours on it one night, and then another 4 hours the additional day trying to tackle it, and it just wasn't working. So it was kind of a disappointment. Plus that particular pedal had a weird offset to it anyway that would have been kind of weird. So what I ended up doing instead is I bought another pedal, and I bought this directly from the place that I bought the motor and the controller from. And so this is more of an aftermarket generic kind of pedal. What I like about it is it is your typical electric throttle, though there's no mystery with it. This has all been sorted out. We know what these pins do, so it's simply plug and play. It comes with an adapter too, so you can solder your adapter, the connector for this, solder your wire into that, and then simply plug into here to get your connection. So what's nice about it is that this has all been sorted out. So it's a 12 volt in, 12 volt ground out, and then there's the pin in the middle is your signal, and that's what we're looking for. 0 to 5 volt is what we're looking for. And then the other two pins are for an additional device to switch on and off. Maybe like brake lights or something, but you could use it for other items. And so, as it says here, 0 to 5. So that's what we're looking for, 0 to 5 signal. So our controller is set up for that. It's actually set up for multiple different settings, but that's the preferred setting, is the 0 to 5 volt out. And that brings us, so that's basically, also another thing I like about this too is that it's a nice straight pedal too. Like I said, the other one was offset, kind of weird. This one is going to fit much more nicer. It looks more like a conventional kind of pedal, so I think that's going to work really nicely. And then it brings us over here to the to this over here. So as you might be able to guess, this is a throttle for an e-bike, and so this has 5 volts going in, 5 volts coming out, and then it has a signal 0 to 5 volts. So just like this one that has the 0 to 5 volt signal, the controller can accept the same type of signal for regen braking. So the concept is with this is that we're going to go ahead and keep the brakes separate, because the thing about braking is I never know, if I try to integrate the brakes into the brake pedal, the regen braking, it's kind of hard to kind of get that to really balance out. Like, I mean, how do I know when I'm regen braking or when I'm friction braking? So I really like the idea of keeping them separate entirely. That way 100%. That is going to brake just the way it always has. There's nothing that's changed. Actually, the weight of the car is actually lighter than it was stock. So if anything, using that friction brake is going to stop the car faster than it ever has before. So that's not going to change. So if I need to emergency brake or whatever, but most of the time I'm more casually driving, and I'm going to be regenning probably 90% of the time. 95% of the braking is going to be regen braking. So I want to be able to know when I'm regen braking. So that's what we're going to use with this. I think this is a nice little device here, and this was also very inexpensive. Very inexpensive, and it's amazing. This was like $100. This was like 11. So it's a bargain of a lifetime right here, because it's basically a device all set up ready to go. Now, the only negative thing is we have, obviously it's set up for a handlebar, but I figured that if we keep it somewhere in the console area and we can just kind of casually, pull back on that when we want for regenning, it's the same way that you might have a paddle behind the wheel to regen. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get these guys installed, hook them up to our controller, and finish up all of our wiring, and then see if we can get this motor to spin.